This is what it takes to buy a six-figure content website. Hi, I'm Jaryd Krause, host of the Buying Online Businesses podcast, and today I'm speaking with Robin, who is a Bob member, who was a surgeon, now turned online business owner and real estate investor. He chose to start buying and scaling online businesses so he can have more time freedom and ski more with his friends and family. He now focuses on building his online business portfolio and continued learning in the space. And this podcast episode is an absolute gem. It's almost a full hour of Robin and I talking about buying online businesses. We talk about why he decided to buy a business, what he used to do for work, why he quit that as a job and bought a business, and how he started this whole online business thing with absolute no idea of how online businesses work. He didn't even have any social media accounts. He had to get a Facebook account just to become a part of the Bob community. We also talk about how much time he actually put into the whole buying process of buying a site, what inputs he needed to put in to be able to get the result of buying a great website, and what it actually took him. We also talk about how he was able to get the site that he did buy for cheaper, lesser than the listing price, and much lesser than the listing price as well. We also talk about ad backs, why brokers actually add these in or sellers add these in as ad backs, and why you can fight them or how you can fight them if you actually know how. We also talk about what he bought the site for in terms of the amount, the multiple, and the type of website he bought. We also talk about what he's going to do to grow it and his next steps for the future. We talk about so much with due diligence and things that you can learn that can benefit you in the buying process of buying the right business. A lot around great mindset of buying a business and how you can tackle some of the challenges that may be coming. And lastly, Robin shares his advice to anyone thinking of buying an online business. Now, this podcast is so damn valuable. We mentioned due diligence in it multiple times. If you don't have my framework that I use, what Robin's used and what everybody else has used to save themselves millions of dollars and make themselves millions of dollars from buying a great business, get that at buyingonlinebusiness.com/free resources. There'll be links to that in the show notes. Let's get stuck into this podcast episode. Robin, hello.
Yeah.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited to have a chat with you. Congratulations. You just bought your first online business. How does it feel?
That feels great. It took a little while for me, and I did a lot of preparation, but it feels really good.
Cool. So a lot of preparation, took a while. Let's dive into those sorts of questions soon and what was involved with it. But I want to ask you why an online business? Like, why did you decide to go down this route? How did you discover it? How did you find out about this Jaryd Krause guy? Like, how did this all unfold for you?
Well, Jaryd Krause is a real famous guy, so everyone knows him, but the way it started was, about a year and a half ago, I was looking for other assets to invest in. I've been a real estate investor for 9 years, and I'm also a doctor, a recently retired doctor. But I realized in order to prepare for retirement, I needed multiple sources of income. These days, you know that the interest rates and the ability to invest is getting more expensive. So I looked at different avenues, and online businesses came up to the forefront.
Cool. And so you just wanted to get out of, like, you're doing real estate. You've been doing real estate for 9 years. You just wanted a different asset, or what sort of asset were you looking for?
Yeah, I was looking for an asset that had a higher ROI. I was looking to enter the digital economy, but also I wanted an asset that would afford me freedom over the long haul, to be able to make it more passive depending on my appetite for work, and also to be able to do it from anywhere. And there are not a lot of semi-passive to passive assets that afford you all of that. But it sounded like online businesses was a way to go.
Yeah, especially with the ROI. You can have something that's semi-passive or mostly passive, but the ROI isn't as, cash on cash basis isn't there where it is in online businesses. And that might change over time because online business is relatively new. Not so many people know about it.
Yes.
So how did you decide the difference between buying a brick and mortar business or an online business, or was brick and mortar not even a thing?
Yeah, I looked into creating businesses, brick and mortar ones, whether investing in restaurants or, retail businesses, but they all have, limitations as you know, these days, getting money to finance these businesses is coming more difficult. Finding folks to work in a reliable fashion is a little more difficult. I think people are interested in working for themselves, either as gig workers or things like that. And online businesses thrives on outsourcing such employees or people, like people who want to work for themselves, who like writing or who like doing SEO work, but on their own terms. So that's why online businesses made sense, especially now. And as the economy moves more digital and more work from home type scenarios, it makes sense to invest in online businesses.
Yeah, cool. I remember when you emailed me a while ago now, when we first started chatting, you had a bigger goal, not just investing into online businesses for just ROI and cash. What was your personal goal and why you wanted to buy an online business?
Yeah, I mean, our email started with me looking for someone to help me coach the next phase of my life. And so you
Mm.
were open to that and actually had some great ideas. And I'd asked a lot of different online types of coaches. I mean, you were no strings attached. I mean, this is what I would do in your situation. And ultimately, my goal was to leave my day job, which is a busy job. I'm a surgeon and there's not a lot of wiggle room to do other things as a surgeon. I was able to invest in over the 9 years in properties, but I wanted some more diversification, and so online businesses seem perfect. So you shepherded me through the process. Obviously, people are scared when they don't know about a new asset like this, and you said, "Listen, based on your decades of experience and in your own story, which was very similar in terms of wanting to, have control over your life, like I did,
Mm.
it resonated with me."
Yeah, I mean, I remember the hours. How many hours were you telling me you were working? You were working, I can't remember. You were working quite a lot of hours as a surgeon, right? It's a pretty
Yeah,
demanding job.
yeah, and not only I mean, whether it's 60 to sometimes more a week, but it's a type of work. It's although it's definitely rewarding being a doctor. At some point, it takes a toll on you, the responsibility of lives. And by the way, I don't dismiss it by any means, and I highly respect all of my colleagues. But it was time for me maybe to do something less strenuous. So
Mm.
not only hours, but the type of work and the stakes of the work. They were building up.
Yeah, I don't know what it's like making decisions as a surgeon, but I'm sure it's pretty stressful when you've got people's lives on the line and
Yeah.
their health on the line. So I'm sure that could be emotionally taxing. Probably not as emotionally taxing as being a plumber and running a plumbing company and being a supervisor for that when you've got
I've had some bad
people's health on
plumbing
the line.
issues, and I've had people come over last minute, so that's like being on call, I guess, in some ways.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. And so you came to online businesses. You found out about you. You somehow found me. Decided, let's go down this route. Let's buy an online business. What happened from there? Like, tell me about how you decided to choose the right type of asset for you, and why.
Yeah, I mean the ROIs that have been described by not only you but other online business mentors are pretty impressive. There's no such thing as 100% foolproof investment, but I mean if you look at stocks right now, or if you look at real estate, being able to get a loan for real estate, the margins are thinner than ever. Whereas online businesses, although they can vary, they're still fairly consistent. It sounds like a monthly multiple of anywhere between the mid 30s and mid 40s. You can't beat that anywhere. So that just as a business model or as a potential business result, you couldn't beat that. So that's what intrigued me. Not only the lifestyle it could potentially afford, but just the numbers alone were fairly impressive.
Yeah, cool. And I'm curious because you would have had the option to buy cash and also probably do some financing or do mostly financing. What helped you to make the decision on whether you wanted to go cash or use financing, and
Yeah.
why? I know that the reason I ask is because everybody listening is like, what Robin says isn't the answer. It was what's ideal for Robin based on
Yeah.
his risk tolerance and what is personally right for you. People feel like sometimes like, just tell me the answer, Jaryd. Like, do I need to do debt or not debt? Well, it depends on so many different things. So
Right.
how do you decide whether you wanted to use debt or not?
Yeah. That's a great question. I think, I've had a career already, so I've been able to save and invest. So I do have already some other forms of income. And I also have a lot of debt. And so with real estate, it's all debt. And with
Mm,
debt comes, responsibility as well. I mean, if a commercial property doesn't rent out for a period of time, COVID was very scary. And so that really gave me pause. Do I really want to take on more debt versus do
mm,
I want to be debt free in my next investment? That was the main reason why I chose not to rely on debt. Certainly, if you use debt, other people's money. That's the golden rule: is you can make more money by using funds from other institutions. But there's a liability. Like having debt is a responsibility, and I didn't need more of that.
yeah, definitely. I like that answer. It's definitely a responsibility. And I feel like sometimes people think it's just, let's just go the easy way
Hmm.
and let's get other people's money and use debt, and realize that it's not typically the easiest way. It would be easier to buy with cash if you could, right?
Yes.
Rather than having to pay somebody back and having that weigh not just on you personally, emotionally, but the business as well. And so there's a few different types of online businesses, you know,
Yeah.
e-commerce, membership, SaaS, content. When you first discovered, I want to buy an online business, what type of online business, like what business model did you believe would be best for you? Or were you thinking about buying, and why?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's where I really relied on many of your lessons. I mean, when you search online businesses, your YouTube videos come up immediately, and you've laid it out quite well. The risks and rewards of different types of online businesses, and what appealed to me about content or content businesses are the fact that the overhead's low. You don't have to worry about physical items and supply chain issues. We've all heard about supply chain issues over the COVID crisis. I didn't want to
Mm,
have to deal with that. Um, online content, online businesses felt like it would afford me the most freedom. I could scale it as much or as little as I wanted. I could invest in as much or as little as I wanted. I really wouldn't have to rely on others like supply chains or whatnot. So that's what really appeals to me.
yeah, cool. And so you chose a content business. I think that's, as most people know, I think that's the best place to start
Yeah.
for somebody who's a beginner. But I also think it's the best place for people to end as well if you want to buy a business that's quite passive, unless with a caveat you have some sort of specific knowledge that you can use as leverage in a different business model
Right.
that you actually want to leverage. I know people that work with us, Robin, we do some coaching in our mastermind that have specific knowledge in digital marketing and e-commerce, and they are going to use that as leverage to build their portfolio, but they want to decide to afterwards exit out of those sorts of deals so they can have a more passive portfolio of different types of online businesses and those models that suit their lifestyle goals and their financial goals over the e-commerce routes or a different business model,
Right.
because that can be hard to choose. It can be hard to get the lifestyle goals time wise and also the financial goals with profit margin wise with those types of businesses. Not to say there's anything against it, but it's a different kettle of fish. And I'm
Yeah.
glad that you don't have all of that to learn and fumble around with, which I guess we'll probably chat about towards the end around what it's like taking over the business and what you've had to do and learn and stuff like that, because that's going to be very insightful for people. But you just bought your business a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
What was the journey like? Tell me Tell me about some of the hardest things that you came up against, some of the things that might have been very profound for you that you learned that was critical. But let's
Yeah.
probably start with, the harder parts of the journey so people can know what they have coming down the pipe when they decide to go this route as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm as new to online businesses and even, the digital economy as anyone can be. So if I can do it, I think anyone can do it. I didn't have a Facebook account until I did the online business teaching, and I realized, I probably need to have a Facebook account in order to get on the community. So that's how new I am.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, I mean, with my background in real estate, I needed something. I needed a methodology to create, to evaluate, to justify the value in online business. And
Mm.
so as I read about that, evaluating these online businesses, I realized it's really similar to real estate. I mean, you can get a profit and loss statement, and they can be longer or shorter or as granular as you want them to be. And then you as a buyer make the decision: do the numbers work out? But ultimately, a deal is made between two people or individual people, and so the deal is. I think you feel most comfortable with the deal based on the seller, and that's what I felt comfortable with in this case. I did a lot of learning. I mean, we'll probably talk about the due diligence methodology that you've laid out, your templates and your all the different resources that we rely on. And if that didn't exist, then I don't think I'd move forward with buying an online business. I mean, I'm the type of person who needs evidence, and the due diligence framework gave me a way to get reproducible evidence.
Yeah, awesome. So grateful that tool has been so helpful for you
Yeah.
and so many others. It's many years in iteration and
Yeah.
many failures on my part. So yeah, it's good to be able to save some people some time and some money with that. Coming back to what you said before about the seller, and a lot of buying the business sort of relies on the relationship and the connection you have with the seller. I think that's so valuable that you brought that up, because a lot of people may get over complicated and overrun with the data
Yeah.
part of it, which is important. The data part and getting the data, putting it in the framework, and analyzing it and getting our review is very, very important. And understanding the data and looking at it from the right lens.
Hmm.
By the way, guys, if you don't have our framework, make sure you get it. There'll be a link in the show notes. You can get it for free. The data is important, but the part about the seller and the connection and the communication, the relationship you have with the seller, tell me what you mean about that, because I think that's fascinating for people to learn more, especially with your background in due diligence in real estate and connecting with the seller of other assets as well, and what you learned from that you brought over into online businesses. Be cool to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. You can get a sense of the seller or the person that you're doing business with very early by how readily available they are to answer difficult questions. And I compiled a bunch of questions based on all of the due diligence teachings and all of the lessons in your course. And so I had about 2 or 3 pages of questions, and real questions that are, you could tell if someone's BSing you, right? Based on the way they ask questions, where they punt a question, or they don't have the data. And sometimes they're like how quickly they answer the questions. And this particular seller had the questions answered within 24 hours or less. The individual was in Asia, living in Asia. So I mean, even with that time difference, we were able to get these things done. So I felt comfortable there from the start. Ultimately, we conversed over Zoom, and that was also very reassuring. It was an individual who wasn't in the business of flipping, making quick sales. It was a passion project for him. You could tell based on the content, the nature of the content. It was honest content. Wasn't spammy. It wasn't overly templated. He wasn't trying to sell anything. It was mostly display like ads. It wasn't affiliate marketing or anything like that. He was an individual who lived the lifestyle, and so that was all very reassuring. So it was a really sincere seller, and it showed up in his website.
I like that. Now, and thanks for sharing. Now, from some of the other conversations you had with other sellers on Zoom calls or on any sort of call, not to nitpick or to point anybody out or anything like that, but what are some of the things that you noticed in sellers that you didn't gel with, that in how they communicated? Just so people can sort of see, like, all right, what should I be looking out for, and how people may deflect answers or not actually answer the question the way it was asked, or the communication that you may have had through the calls. Yeah, what made it night and day? If it was night and day, maybe, but what was the opposition like there?
Yeah, I think the reasoning for which the individual was selling the site varied. Some of them didn't have great answers. There was stock answers like we want to go into other opportunities. The story behind their investment into the site, whether it was they had just acquired it or they just created it in order to sell it, which is fine. I mean, those are fine to purchase, but that wasn't what I wanted. I think the valuations, how that I asked questions about justifying the price at which the individual was selling the site. They weren't always up to speed, and also kind of explanations for certain blips in traffic and revenues, why the traffic was going down for a period of time, but even more importantly, why the traffic surged 3 months before selling the site. Those were red flags for me, and the answers weren't necessarily the most sincere. They're very stock, and so when those answers were not really good, I questioned the seller and therefore the site.
Yeah, it's a really good pickup. And all those little things I see basically come from the foundation of somebody who's started a site or bought a site to flip it, or started a site to sell it. And that's their main goal is money. And they may have missed some certain things around building the asset to be so damn solid that the owner can have a more passive lifestyle and a passive business. Whereas, they said that you can see that the owner of the site, the previous owner of your site that you bought, actually just used the business as a great asset because it was built well to leverage off and have a great lifestyle. And it's so different to see those types of businesses, because when it comes from that foundation of the seller's intention being long-term, easy run, less stress, those businesses are so much more valuable. Yes. And you may pay a higher multiple for them than somebody that's just like, I just need a quick buck, right? Yeah. Is that what you notice as well? Or do you have anything
Absolutely.
to say to that?
Yeah, I think this particular seller had lived off this site and was able to travel based on the revenues of the site for a few years. And so his livelihood depended on it. And so he created a website that would be sustainable, that would, he had answered that if I didn't sell the site, I'd be okay, because honestly, this is my bread and butter. And so that he put that much care into the site where it seemed like it'd be a great thing to own as well. Whereas other sellers, you could tell they weren't really invested in the site, in not only monetarily but otherwise, and they were definitely a little pushy in the sale, and you could sense the impatience in their selling. So I didn't like that.
Yeah, makes sense. Totally makes sense. Now, you are no longer working as a surgeon. You're retired. Congratulations. How does that feel?
You. That feels incredible. You remember the emails I sent you? It was the first few emails are, this is my situation. This is how I see online businesses allowing me to move forward, but I'm scared. And then I remember one of your emails saying, it's natural to be scared, but just think of it just both emotionally as well as monetarily. And you portrayed both sides, and in both instances, it made sense. I mean, I could do it. And so
Yeah.
my following email, I announced to you that I took the leap and I retired, and
Yeah.
that was great.
It was great to see that email
Yeah,
because there's no right or wrong answer, right? It's like you could keep working, keep earning a decent money, or you could quit, or you could do a hybrid, but it came back to what was right for you personally and what you wanted, like how you wanted to spend your time. And like the fear thing is like, you should be scared. Like if you're not scared, you're not a human. I
right.
mean, how long have you been a surgeon for, right?
Yeah,
Decades.
decade.
And you're getting outside your comfort zone. Of course, that's going to be scary, but outside the comfort zone is where that growth and the change come from, which is
Yeah,
which is this. So I'm so thrilled for you, and it also gave you an opportunity to lean further into the buying of the business and more time focused on that. Which is where I'm going with this. Is now that you like, how much time per week do you feel, or how many due diligence did you do? Because I noticed that you were a lot more proactive than many other people, probably because you had time. And yeah, what did that look like for you? Like how many hours roughly were you, working on this and per week, and what did that look
yeah.
like?
That's a good question. And as you know, a lot of those brokers introduce new sites, you know, at the beginning of the week or certain times of the week, and so I would probably at least do a quick due diligence based on another lesson you taught us, which there are eight bullet points, which you can use to quickly weed out certain sites that aren't right for you. So I would do that, for 10 to 15 sites a week. But then in terms of when I spotted something that hit my initial criteria, I would, do the due diligence. And I tell folks, my first few due diligences took 4 hours or so, but over the course of, just practicing, I got it down to 2 hours, and I'm sure I'm probably a little bit faster now. But so I initially did select the funnel kind of method. Initially, I cast a broad net. I was able to weed out a lot of businesses, and then those
Mm.
that were interesting to me, I'd spend more time on them, and I got faster over time. But I did 10 to 15 due diligences over the course of 2 months.
Yeah, that's great. That's very active. And I'm glad that you said that. Like say it was 15 due diligences. The reason I ask is because a lot of people listening are like, I want to buy a business, I want to make money as soon as possible, and I want to do it within like a 2 month period, right?
All right.
You did this in a 2 month period. Awesome. But you had a lot more time. You did 15 due diligences.
Sure.
Some other people have a full-time job, 40 to 50 hours a week. They have two younger children. I know that your children are a bit older, a bit more
Mm-hmm.
self-sufficient now, which is great. You get to go ski with them and all that sort of stuff. But they might have two younger children, a wife, full-time job, and they're trying to get out of that full-time job so they can spend more time with their family, which is awesome. That is at the core why I do this. So
Mm-hmm.
people have that time freedom to spend more time doing what they love with people they love. But they forget that, I need to do this over a period of time. And the inputs, I should be measuring the inputs, not the time.
Right.
Whereas they may see, okay, Robin did this in 2 months. If I give myself 2 months, I can do this as well. Whereas they might not have time to do a due diligence every week, or two every week,
Yeah.
or 15 in 2 months. Most people don't have that time. And then they get to that 2 month mark and they realize, I can't do this. I'm a failure, or this system doesn't work. I'm going to go find a get rich quick scheme or chase the other shiny ball. And it's such a shame to see, because people actually think in the last 2 weeks, we've had two people rejoin Bob, the
Yeah.
community, because they've left, tried something else, and then come back. And that had been years in between. So they'd spent all this time doing stuff and not getting the result, and then coming back and realizing that this vehicle is like build wealth slowly over time vehicle, and it works if they stick with it. So
Mm-hmm.
what do you think about the time frame thing and the inputs versus the results?
I mean, in one of your lessons, you said it best. It's like time is your enemy, or measuring time is your enemy. And so
Mm,
you can't measure the wrong things, and you can't compare yourself to other people, because everyone has a different situation. If you were to measure time and say, well, I spent 2 months or 2 years or 2 days, and I've done this many due diligences and it's resulted in A or B, I mean, you're bound to be a little discouraged. You've said it before. You got to keep your focus on what you want, and not just making money or quitting your job. It's what do you want your life to be in 1 year, 3 years, and 5 years. That's how I always plan my life. And if your 1 year plan, a 3 year plan is, I want a source of income in addition to what I'm doing, or I want freedom and be able to travel or be able to spend more time with my family or to start a different project, that should be your impetus to and your measurement. It shouldn't be like, I got to get an online business by this time or I failed. It's got to be, this is my stepping stone to what I want in 1, 3, or 5 years. I don't think you should measure your results in by time. I think, when I went to medical school and residency took, I don't know how many years. If I was measuring my failures or successes based on time, I would have not been a doctor. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's great. That's great. Time is so different because some people will buy a business and they might actually want to grow it from like $1,000 a month to $2,000 a month. And they might give themselves a year to do it. And they get to after a year and they've gone from $1,000 a month to $1,500 a month. And they go, it didn't work. And they might try and sell the business.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't realize in the next 2 or 3 months after that, they might have got to the $2,000 mark range.
Right.
And in reality, just because you're measuring time, you quit on your actual goal, which could come later down the track. But 50% growth in even like if you're trying to get that in 1 year, that's huge, right? 1,000 to 2,000, that's huge. If you give yourself 50% growth over a 3-year time period, I still think that's awesome, right? Yes, online businesses can move up and down and sideways and move very, very fast up, but they can also move very, very fast down. We need to consider that as well. So yeah, I'm so glad that we brought up the time thing, Robin. Now, with this, you would have spent some time learning online businesses as a whole in general. Like you didn't do social media, didn't have a Facebook account or anything like that. You knew nothing about the online business space when you joined. There are people that listen to this podcast that are like, I want to get into this, but they've got this hurdle, this gap of like, how do I start to learn some of the stuff? Or can I actually buy an online business or earn an income online if I don't know how to do the tech stuff? And we have people join all the time like this. They get great results like you. What were some of the hardest parts about going through not knowing how online businesses work to buying a business? What were some of the hardest parts that you think people should look out for?
I think first and foremost, these days there's so many get rich quick types of schemes. And so certainly I've been, subjected to some of them. You got to use your own judgment, and you've got to listen to all the different folks that are in this space, and whether or not they're saying something that's consistent, whether you feel it feels good to you, or whether you feel like it's kind of a quick sale type of scenario. I think folks will be a little suspicious if they've been in other businesses like restaurants or brick and mortar by some of the ROIs or some of the multiples that you see on online businesses. Certainly it doesn't happen all the time, but more often than not, the multiples that people describe in their testimonials are valid. Coming from real estate, if I were to see an ROI of 30%, let alone 15% or 20%, I'd be amazed. But I mean, these ROIs are visible. The other important thing is this isn't a startup type thing. These are established businesses. They just happen to be in the digital space. They have track records of profit, and you can see the profit and losses right in front of you, where the proof is in the numbers. They can be confirmed. So that's the important thing, is to kind of keep an open mind about this type of asset. Use your own due diligence in terms of what are assets that are good or bad. Look at your situation and figure out exactly what you're expecting to get out of it, how much you can invest. Consider the barriers of entry on any business. Stocks, anyone can buy a penny stock or whatnot, but are you owning anything? Versus being able to own something that's tangible that you could potentially afford to buy and also to scale, there's not a lot out there that you can do that. That you can literally get on your phone and look at your website and say, this looks great, or I need to fix this, and then watch the traffic.
Yeah, you brought up something really cool around the stocks. Like you can buy a stock, but you can't control it, which means like you can't buy part of a business and scale it and grow it because you don't control it. You may own part of the business, but you have zero say.
Right.
Which can be okay. Yeah, the ability to be able to grow your asset is very, 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 very valuable.
Cool.
Speaking of the asset, and feel free to share numbers if you're open to it, like price, multiple, monthly profit. If you're open to it, we'd love to hear that. If not, that's totally cool. But yeah, what was the multiple, and how did you work out the deal? Like, how did you work out the deal structure, and why did you do it that way?
Yeah, absolutely. So the price was above 200K, and as I mentioned, it's a content site. It primarily relied on ads, no affiliates. So there's some upside potential to it that you could see over time. And the multiple that was offered initially was 45. So a monthly multiple of 45. And that was in the hands of the seller, who did most of the work himself. And so after creating a rapport with the seller, and the seller had multiple offers at the time, and some of these offers could have been, better than mine in terms of just about money. I kind of let that person know, I think the site's great. It's an honest site. I respect the fact that he made it from scratch. I know it's important to him because his bread and butter, that's his bread and butter. However, in my hands, who, probably will not write all the content, will probably outsource a lot of the SEO work and things. And quite frankly, there's some work that needs to be done. I said, this is the value in my hands. So from the 45 multiple, we got it to 39.
Amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
That's so cool. And I want to talk about those expenses, or what brokers would call them, ad backs, because this is very, very big. There's two things here that helped you hugely. One is you became an attractive buyer. You are an attractive buyer. We have lessons on that in the course on how to become an attractive buyer, which helps you so much with getting your offer accepted even over another person who may bid higher than you. Secondly, getting down from a 45 multiple to a 39 multiple is very valuable, because there is a way that with these ad backs that you can not have to pay all of the ad back, pay for all of the ad backs, or have that baked into the deal. The reason so many brokers put ad backs in is so they can bump up the price of the deal. And when they bump up the price of the deal, they bump up their commission structure. And the seller and the broker are super happy. Good on them. That's great. But we're buyers here.
Yeah.
So I like to teach people, and you can learn if you know how to do this the right way, in how to decrease the multiple, buy business for less than somebody else's bidding, by two things: understanding how you can fight the ad backs, and there's a specific way that needs to be done, right, Robin? Like you need to word it in a way, and you need to understand the business and the expenses and what's going to be used moving forwards versus not, and then also being an attractive buyer. Tell me about how valuable or how important that was to you, because I'm sure it saved a bunch of money.
Absolutely. I mean, I was honest with the individual and said, this is my first purchase and I'm fairly new in the space. I also, I went through the whole kind of the math behind it. He realized, he's speaking the truth. This is how much it would cost to hire certain people. So I was fairly granular about, I laid out the numbers in my hands, what it would cost in my hands to run it. And so he agreed. I mean, his definition of these values they're not ad backs. Those are fixed costs. I mean, in your hands, that's how you would be able to run this business. I don't know that every seller would respect that. I don't know how much, whether he liked me. I certainly treated him with a lot of respect, and all the emails I crafted it in a way where it looked like I spent time and thought in them. No spelling mistakes, no they seemed like I cared, which I did.
Mm.
And similarly, his emails were like well crafted. They were understandable, and we didn't see eye to eye and everything. But I think in the end, we valued each other's opinions, and I think that's how we came to an agreement. So it's back to deal making between individuals, like you teach us, like be respectful,
Mm.
be that very that buyer that may win the deal, even though you might not you know offer the most money.
Huge, huge. You can actually knowledge. This is what I like to tell people: knowledge, being respectful, can buy your. You can literally buy yourself respect
Yep.
by having specific knowledge, caring about the person, and it's just that's when you think about it, that's attractive, right? Somebody
Yeah.
that knows where they stand, they know about the industry, they know about what the costs are of these expenses, and they know if it's a reality of like what a business owner would have to pay, and you communicate that in a way like this is fair, whether it's right for me or whether it's right for any other person that's you give the business to. This is the fair value of the business for anybody that owns it, regardless if it's me or not. And being able to communicate in a way that you did, Robin, helps so much. It literally buys you respect and makes you attractive, and that's what I'm all about in those deals. And you have the benefit definitely of learning it through the course, but you've also got some experience in doing so with real estate. So that definitely feel played a good role into it as well. Now that you have the business, what are the next steps? Where do we go from here? Do you have goals? Where do you go from here?
That's a good point. I mean, I'm literally learning as I take over this business. As you know, there's ad accounts that I'm logging into and trying to figure out how much traffic is being earned every day and what the earnings are. I'm trying to not get too emotional or too fixed by the day-to-day up and downs, because like I said, online businesses, they show daily trend changes, and so I'm trying not to get overly concerned about those things when they go down. Obviously, it's nice when it goes up. I'm working with you to help me create a team as well. The technical aspects, the SEO aspects, which are always moving, dynamic, for anybody, let alone someone who's beginning like myself.
Mm.
Trying to figure out what do I want the structure of the website to be? What do I want to convey to the reader? How do I want to? I want to be respected in the niche, either by myself, but more likely through proxy. And I want to keep the integrity of the site, because I think that'll make it a sustainable site. It'll be true to the original creator of the site who did a great job, and I think it'll result in a more profitable site over the long run. So I'm in it for the long haul. I don't want to flip it. I want to create a portfolio. I want to create a team that I could deploy in future purchases.
I love it. I just want to highlight what you said because people may not have really heard what I heard. I asked you how you're going to grow the site, and you went straight into adding value, being respectful, having high integrity in the space, and giving value to the reader. That came before I just want to get it from X amount per month to this amount per month. That was the baseline. That was the foundation. And I'm so glad that I get to work with you on this site, help you build a team, because where it's coming from is a really good place. And I think people that are listening take that as a really good mindset to have when you're looking at growing your content business or any business, is come from that place. And then, yes, it will become highly profitable, which this business already is. Robin, there are a lot of people listening that are thinking about buying a site, or they're about to start their journey. What advice would you give to them to finish off with?
I think you can't do this alone. And so you need to find a mentor. There, as you mentioned, there are folks who have come and gone in this niche before. Maybe the timing wasn't right, but I think they're coming back with it because they realize the mentorship is valuable and honest. you can tell you can tell when an individual is a straight shooter when you feel comfortable with them. When you don't feel like you're being sold something, and I think that's the first thing is to have good mentorship. And then second is don't be discouraged. I mean, you're going to have ups and downs. You're going to be close to deals and lose deals. You're going to feel frustrated that there is no quote unquote perfect deal for you. Have an open mind and don't be discouraged by small failures. You talk to us about, you always ask us about small wins, and think about those small wins. They add up into a bigger win. They're all moving into a certain trajectory, a certain vector of your 1, 3, or 5-year plan, and you got to think about it that way. I think if don't get discouraged, you're patient, you think about the long game, and you find a good mentor, you'll find joy in the process as well as the path, as well as the outcome, the destination.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Robin. Congratulations. I look forward to working with you, and maybe we see how you go in some time in the future, and then maybe we have another chat again, depending on if you still own the site or where you're at. But yeah, thanks so much. There's so much value in here for people, so we really do appreciate you coming on and sharing.
Hey YouTube watcher, if you thought that video was good, you should check out this video here on the 2 best types of websites beginners should buy. Or check out my playlist on how I made my first 100K from buying websites and how to do due diligence. Check it out. It's an awesome playlist. You'll enjoy it.